Do you need encouragement to turn tragedies into your own triumphant life story? If so, this podcast is for you. Listen to powerful guests who have persevered through challenges so you can gain strength to build your championship life. The host of Professor of Perseverance podcast, Dr. James Purdue.
Hey, come on in. Hey, do you remember back in the old 70s, back then, I'm dating my age, back in the 70s had Big Fat Albert. Hey. So I started off, hey, but not quite like Fat Albert though. So, hey, today, let's go ahead and we get started here. We're going to guest that really turned struggles early in life to, when they say everybody should shoot for the moon, if you miss, you got a star, she hit the moon. She's on the moon. Well, she's not on the moon, but her information is on the moon. So let's go ahead and get started here with our guest. Welcome. Let me push this button. Jennifer. Oh, Gligoric. I knew I'd miss it.
It's Jennifer Gligoric, but you did a great job.
Gligoric. Then I was going, I waited too long. Gligoric. All right, Jennifer. Thank you for being here in Super Clinic Project.
That's right. I'm with the Super Clinic Project podcast. We turn regular clinic owners into super clinic owners. My job is, for 25 years, I did a crisis intervention for businesses. So I would go in and everybody's on fire, like bad things are happening. They can't turn it around. They don't have any money to pay their bills. And I would go in and turn it around. And a lot of times, they had already tried to sell it and they realized that they weren't going to get any money for it. And so the business brokers would be the ones saying, hey, we have a really poorly performing business asset, either brokers or investors, VCs or angels. And then I would go in and turn them around. But I started scaling fully remote businesses. And then I started working with a lot of clinics, especially when Obamacare came on. And it was like every month we would get these things from the medical board saying, record number of physicians have committed suicide or record number of physicians have went bankrupt. And it just was happening. They couldn't handle it. It really was a failure as far as the clinics went, everything that was happening. And so I was helping them learn how to be better business owners and what was overnight a totally different landscape. And it's still a different landscape, and we have to fix it. So it's what I do. But I did have a very challenging early life, which why I was here for people who want to persevere. And it really helped make who I am today. If you have the right mindset, or you learn to get the right mindset, because we don't
learn it. We got to definitely learn it. That's right.
Then it kind of changes everything after a while. So yeah.
I had this talking mindset. I just still having a friend, but in Tennessee, I don't know, maybe 18, 20 years ago, first time the lottery is going to hit $500 million. 500 million. This is like 20 years ago, 18 years ago. And I saw this guy and he says, hey man, you see the lottery's up to 500 million? And I said, yeah, man. I said, man, what I could do with that. And then here's his mind thinking, if I won that, they would take my food stamps away. Exactly. I said,
my
what?
Goodness.
You can't live off 500 million that you need $197, whatever it was, in food stamps. So you would rather keep that and trade off 500 million. I said, I think I can make it, and tell them, please give that 197 to somebody else.
That is a really indoctrinated, that is someone who has been mind controlled to not be able to think at all.
Well, he grew up poor. His mother gave him to grandparents to raise. And of course they were old and feeble as it was. And of course he got into drugs, alcohol, and he just grew up with that mindset.
Yeah, and it is a mindset. I mean, I'm not going to lie and say that the systems aren't skewed against people. They are, but there's ways around it if you can just think to the positive, right? And you cannot let yourself get bogged down by how the systems are skewed against us. Like, for example, Wall Street bets, you know, there's this something, well, you can't, the poors just don't have financial literacy, right? Well, yeah, they did. And they beat you at your own game, following all the laws. And then the system illegally stopped them from winning to give money back to the hedge funds.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a crime against humanity as far as I'm concerned, right? And in the end, they're still fighting against that, but it changed the landscape for a lot of things, and it did change it for better. It may not have changed it as much as it should have. Those hedge funds should have lost their shirt because they made the wrong bet, right? But on the flip side, it changed some things. When you want to think in terms of possibilities and being very mindful about the possibilities rather than be stuck in problems, if you think of things as solutions or challenges that need a solution rather than problems that are plaguing you, if you just start changing your words on that, it becomes a big difference, because our words are very, powerful, when we speak them out. And so just even small changes of, no, I'm not going to say it like that. I'm going to say this is a challenge. And how am I going to get through this challenge, no matter what it is? And you could say, well, what do you know about that? Right. Well, most people look, me or my family, think, oh, you grew up privileged, right? Privilege. It's such a crap. And then I'm like, oh, really? Well, when on my early life, yes, I would say that I had the privilege, even though I was at a single mother my parents got divorced when I was an infant, before I was born. And all my brothers and sisters were much older. In fact, by the time I was born, most of them were getting married. There's a huge gap, right? And so I was raised by a single parent in a time where you did not have single parents. That really was very odd, because it was growing up in the 70s, not to date myself. But yeah, it was different. And early life, though, I felt loved. I had grandparents. I had, people in my family that taught me that I was valuable and I had worth. I wasn't, I didn't experience horrific abuse and things until I got older. Addiction came in the hold and different things that. And then I ended up homeless as a teenager and went to college as a homeless teenager. Sometimes I was able to be in a shelter, but shelters have limits. I stayed in a child shelter. So it was Covenant House, which is children 21 and younger. And sometimes I would come out of the bushes. I would literally sleep on campus. And if somebody caught me, I would just go, oh, that party was crazy. And I'd lie about it, because I didn't want to be noticed. And so when you're homeless and you're a girl and you're young, predators are everywhere. So you learn very quickly, or I learned very quickly, to make myself as unnoticeable, blendable in the background as possible. Right? You're just not even going to notice me. I'm just going to be there. I'm going to be that kid that's there, but people aren't going to remember me. Right? And that was a skill set, actually, that I didn't even realize was a superpower until I became a consultant. And it was interesting because my mother, before she got very ill, and she is sober now for over 30 years, and I've been the best mom on the face of the planet because of the grace of God in Alcoholics Anonymous. But, for years, I didn't even speak to this woman. She was the monster that was horrific. It's horrific, the things I went through. And so, but in my early life, the good portion before she got sick, she owned a business. She actually owned the business the entire time, even when she was sick. But she was really brilliant. My mother's one of the most brilliant women you'd ever meet. And so I would go, she was a staffing agency, and I would set women up on the typewriter. I would do their tests. I would listen to them interviewing with my mom as a little kid, and I would hear that process. So I already knew how to get a job, fill out an application. Those are very important skills that I did not realize until I was homeless that kids don't get. So I was already had one leg up on the game. I knew how to fill out an application. I knew how to spell really well. I was always an incredible student, which helped. And also I had good mentors. I had a great mentor that I met in one of my shelters, and she was from Haiti. And one of the things that she said is, if you lined up people in the room, how would you know who's rich and successful? And so everybody's like, well, what clothes are they wearing? This? Do they have Jordache jeans, which used to be the hot jeans that you would wear, or whatever, or Z Cavaricci. That was another big one that everybody wanted, right? What are they actually wearing? Are they having a suit? Are they having a this? And she was like, that's good. That's good. Now they're all naked, and everybody, because we're kids. Yeah. Now, how would you know? Right? They're all washed, scrubbed down. And then people said, well, like, what do their teeth look like? Like I'm currently undergoing Invisalign, and like a lot of poor kids, I had crooked teeth, right?
Yeah.
I'm fixing them now in my late age. They weren't horrific, but, I can fix them now. So I'm fixing them. And they said, no, how they speak, right? How they hold themselves, their deportment. And she had an incredible speaking voice that she had worked on her tone, her language. And she said, that I'm going to teach her something. It's an entire way of life. If you can learn it, like it's the key to being a universal citizen. And I was like, that's what I want to be. I want to go. And she goes, you will be able to be accepted into any hotel in the world. It doesn't matter your race or your gender or anything. If you can get this, all doors open to you. And I remember my eyes being like pie eyes and my ears being as big as they could. What is that? And she said, it's your speech. There is called American business language and an American business uniform. If you have one thing, a really sharp outfit suit, and then she literally, she told us to go to Walmart and what to get, which was just the most basic, cheap one you could get. But there was a way to style it. Again, cheaply. We're homeless. We have no money, right? But there was a way to do it and how you deport yourself. And so I worked on it. I worked on my Texas twang to not be Texas twang. I worked on that. I worked on, and I'm worse now. There was a time that, I don't think I said my first curse word until I was like 21, right?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
You became a sailor late in life.
Yes. And so now, of course, the color is everything. But I remember thinking about that and thinking how important it was. And I ended up getting really incredible jobs and beating out kids that had every advantage on the face of the planet because of that, because I heard that universal truth, that opportunity. And now today I am livid, like loathe the people who are pushing, just be authentic, talk how you want, whenever you want. Everybody's got to love you. And I'm like, you're pigeonholing people, because the human race, since the dawn of time, we've put people into boxes. And until you're well-traveled and you've went to countries where real racism, real classism exists in their everyday, like you go to the UK and they go, and you listen to them to each other. So where are you from? Bournemouth? You're this. They want to find out, not because they're curious where they live, so they can judge them. And it is a classism that is just unbelievable. Then you go to countries that have caste systems. So when you unlock that superpower, then all of a sudden they cannot. And it really puts the ruling trash, and I like to call them that, the elites, the ruling trash, on notice when you can do that, when they can't really figure out where they're supposed to put you. Then they are forced to judge you by the merit of who you are and what you're presenting to them. And it is the ultimate tool. So I would say, if anyone sat there and fought so that you can wear some ridiculous thing, whatever I mean, it's great when you're with your friends, but I'm going to tell you, if you can learn that one tool, then all these doors open to you, and it's open to every person, no matter if you're a homeless kid with nothing and no one or not, right? So that was very important, right? Learning that. And also too, being a consultant, being able to blend, being able to go into places that were on fire, where there was a ton of rot, and figure out what was really going on, because I have never done a turnaround where it was about what they sold, their website, their brochures, their marketing. It was always an HR issue. They had the wrong people in the wrong place, paying them the wrong wage. They weren't managing them correctly. That is why companies fail. And that's how companies fail even with AI. You have the wrong people doing the wrong things, not utilizing the right tools. It's all a management issue. And when you can figure that part out and figure out where it is, then the sky's the limit from where, as long as you're tracking the right data too. I mean, that goes without saying, but the sky's the limit on that. So I would say if you're struggling with things, finding a job or anything like that, the first thing I would do is do well, how do you come off? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And what's your social media like? I would immediately scrub everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially with people today putting every little thing up there. And
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Not thinking about what could happen in 10 years.
But not just 10 years. There are people right now that houses are getting broken into because they put, I'm going on a cruise.
Yes. Just hear what last football season, NFL, these athletes are getting hit on Sundays because they knew they were gone. And these football players were getting hit on that weekend because they knew they were traveling out of town. And and it was happening real big with the NFL last year.
Yeah. See, that's terrible, right? That's absolutely terrible. And, I was a military wife at one point in my life, and they would always, and they don't do it anymore, but it was Fort Hood, and they would group entire, like if you were in 19 Cav or 21 whatever, they'd group them in the same military housing. And so when the husbands would go away to, to training, all of a sudden the robberies would increase, which is horrible. Military, over other things. And then they started staggering it to where it wouldn't be so easy. Well, that block is going to be a bunch of moms and kids that are unprotected, right? Now they learn their lesson. They can't do that anymore. So,
that was that movie with the Bling Gang, and it was a movie about these teenagers were breaking into these Hollywood people's houses because they saw on social media they were out of town.
Really?
And, it's a movie, Bling Gang.
Ooh, I have to. I don't know. Sometimes I don't want to watch.
It was back in the
criminals, but
it was like back in the late 90s, early 2000s, something like that.
Oh, so maybe it was an original good movie, because everything now I think is trash. These
people were stealing from these Hollywood people because they were gone, and they eventually got caught. But Bling Gang, Bling something. But
I'll have to look it up.
It was back in the so because they had got on social media, and these people were Hollywood stars were talking about where they were going to travel, and they'd show up to them houses, and they were getting in there.
Well, look at that. Remember when Shia LaBeouf, the actor who played on Transformers, the guy. So he went nuts or whatever, not went nuts, however the right way to say that. He was having some issues, right? And he was on social media. It's like, you'll never be able to find me. I'm in the middle of nowhere. And literally there were just regular people on like different websites that found him within 24 hours just because of analyzing the photograph of where he was in the position of like the sun and what the clouds were like that day. And they figured out immediately where he was. It's like, and there are stalkers, like those girls that get on TikTok and all that. I mean, how many of them now? There's been like 7 that some stalkers found him and chopped him up or something and put him in a suitcase. I mean, it's horrific. Like the safety issues that are not, I know I sound like I'm ancient, right? Like, but
both, you and me, we both are. But
it's common sense. Like that shouldn't be old fashioned. There should be some common sense.
Exactly, common sense. Yeah. And so from there, hey, now I want to drive back 2 things here. You said your mom, the greatest woman. Nope. Your mom's second to my mom. Okay. So she just like your mom, she wasn't the sick alcoholic, but she raised 3 boys basically on her own. she remarried when I was like 6 or 7 years old, and he died within 10 years. So we had a 10-year window with a man, a father. Before then, we thought it was normal not to have a dad in the house. And we're here, other kids in school talking about dads, and we had no clue. And she was great at, I wouldn't say we were poor, but we were knocking on the door, right there close to it. And we didn't know how poor we were because she did her best to make sure we still got everything.
Yeah.
So, and
you know what? One thing about my mom that was great before she got really sick is the same thing. I never really knew because I had what I needed, and she did pay extras to send me to a Catholic school. Now, it was a very small school. The same 14 kids I went to pre-kindergarten with are the same 14 kids I graduated 6th grade with in the school. So we're talking teeny.
There we go.
It was little, but it was, had a little convent there. And so only nuns. And yeah, they beat us a lot, but I got to tell you, I got a great education. When I went to public school, it was like night and day. I was terrified all the time because I thought, y'all didn't do your homework. Like, I just knew that was unthinkable. Like, you didn't do your homework. Like, what? It was so different. Yeah, it was so different.
I can imagine. Yeah. I've never really, what you just said about the nuns beating and stuff, I've just heard it in movies. I've never really heard it personally, just like now, but I believe it took place.
Yeah, it wasn't, but it, this shows you how like Gen X I am. It wasn't that bad. I mean, yeah, you get a smacking, but you probably deserved it, right? Like that was as a very different attitude. I'm a very different generation. Like, we had pops. Even when I went to public school, every classroom had a big board. And if you messed up, you had to stand in front of the room. You'd have to bend over and the teacher would smack you. And it hurt.
In front of everybody.
In front of everyone. And you'd cry. Yeah. Was that great?
Oh, I'm like you. My stepfather, but I consider him my dad. And because he was one there. And I tell people, he loved me when I needed it, and he sure busted my butt when I needed it, and I needed it. And but yeah, there's times that I'd get a backhand, and it was just because you got away with something I didn't know about.
That's hardcore. Yeah, we were different. It was a different.
Oh yeah, you couldn't do any of that today.
No, but you didn't have a lot of what you have today either.
That's true. That's
true.
Very
different. It's very different.
So,
but we have to.
Let's move up here now.
Yeah.
I want to find out on the moon. You got your picture and story crater. You know exactly where you're located.
I do.
This is going to be interesting. Going from homeless, trying to get to college, doing college homeless, and you're on the moon. Maybe not you personally, but you're on the moon.
Yeah, I am. So 7 years ago, I heard about this collection of people that wanted to have their own nation, a digital nation. And they talked about wanting to establish the first human birth in space. And that was a goal. And then how would we live in space? And they did not want space to be militarized, and they did not want space to be corporatized. It should be the real piece where it's actually about science and the arts and elevating humanity, but that they wanted to start here on Earth. And I thought that was fascinating. Like, what do you mean a digital nation, right? And so I started thinking, oh, these are just LARPers. They're like Star Wars people. Do they dress up? Let me, I live in the Clear Lake, sort of Galveston area. And so NASA, that's where I grew up. My sister worked for NASA. My dad worked for NASA. So that's knowing astronauts and stuff like that's not like a real big deal when you grow up here. Right. And so I've always been fascinated about space and space exploration. And so I thought, well, I'm interested. And then they did, they have a parliament. And so I thought, okay, so this couple of years in, and I'm like, you know what? I want to make a difference. I'm going to make bigger differences. And I, because I've always been like forward thinking. And I said, okay, I'm gonna apply. So I made a video of what I think. I think that we could establish something in a digital world here, and then eventually that could be, you know, a base for people all over the world to come and gather and look at art and just get together, right? And we can establish laws and things like that. So I you know, did my proposal, and I was voted into Parliament by over 1 million people, which freaked me out.
Yeah.
And then I was a part of a 150-person Parliament. And then when I got in and I actually went to the Parliament meetings, because, you know, I kind of like did it whenever I was online, you know, it was like not huge, you know, but enough that I was interested and I did it. But I had a big background. I had a podcast at that time, and I was interesting to them. They loved my proposal. Really, that's what I did, a really good job on the video. You know, I marketed myself quite well, I will say. And then I realized, oh, wow. So the head of Parliament is Lembik Opik, who is he is a British member of Parliament. He had just left that. He's a very well known. He like dated a Spice Girl. He's always on TV. He, you know, his parents were both world famous mathematicians. And then other members of Parliament are like Nobel Peace Prize winners. And,
there you go.
And then there's me, right? The analyst. And so I realized, oh, wow, this is a whole other world, right? And so I just did a lot of work, and I made myself very useful, and I created an intranet because I knew how to do that, to where information could be, you know, easily disseminated in the Parliament. And then I was selected to apply for a member of government. So that would be a minister. There's 12 cabinet members. And I got it. And so now I'm the Minister of Equity and Resources for the nation of Asgardia. We do have unofficial UN observer status. We are working on the solar, which is to get it completely accepted as our currency. And all the things, like we were made fun of in the very beginning by late night talk show host Samantha Bee, and people were like, what is this? Ridiculous.
No, I didn't.
And a lot of people were making fun of it. And now all the things they said could not happen have happened. And I love it because we can still dream the biggest dreams. And the people were like, well, that sounds silly and dumb. Okay, well, you don't have to like it, but it's going to happen. Well, it can't. Why? And when I really press them for why, their basic reason is because it's too corrupt, and the ruling trash will stop it, because that would actually be good for humanity. And I think that is so depressing that people have given up at their core to actually think good things can no longer happen. You're not even allowed to try. And so this collective of human beings around the planet that have kept this dream alive, and now we've had our national assets at the moon on the Mare Chrism. They were deposited there in a payload March 2nd of 2025 through the Blue Ghost lander. It's there, and my picture is there. Of course, it's digital. You know, it's not. We're not trying to clutter up the moon, right?
That's right.
Very, you know, whatever. But it's there. Our flag, our anthem, all the information about me. I got to write an incredible story.
Wow. Okay.
My DNA, and it's going up with the life ship, and that one's about to happen. And again, so when I look in the moon, I'm literally there now, and I'm like, all those people who said, well, this is silly. That no, it's not. You know, do we really want the Coca-Cola wars where 2 billion people died because they think this one spice from a planet is going to make Coca-Cola taste better? I mean, if we don't work on peace and legislation and the lawyering of it, then countries who don't care are going to take over. China sent up a probe that no one approved. They just did it and said, oh, well, and there's nothing we can do about it. It was 10 stories high, this huge thing, and it fell back to Earth. If it would not have fallen in the ocean, it could have wiped out an entire metro major city. So a lot of people don't realize that the swath of that was like New York City all around, and had it not landed where it did, and there was no calculation, we literally just got lucky, we could have had the worst massive disaster on the planet. Because no one's trying to say, hey, you really can't do that. We can't just send up junk that could come down and murder a bunch of people. There should be some rules and stuff.
Regulations and
And so when I'm not.
Heads up in other countries to prepare.
That's right. That's right. So when I am not working, one-on-one with clinic owners and service-based business owners to fix their business, which is what I do. I'm a coach. I work with them every day. I have a 4-month accelerator. I take people to 10x their business. And it's really pretty grueling, not as bad as the nuns, but I get them to the end. I do transform the business with them. But when I'm not doing that,
you don't have
I'm
a ruler with you to
SRD.
hit them on the knuckles, you're saying.
No, but their own numbers and their own, stuff will do it for them because we want to get to the end.
I hear you.
So I guess my biggest takeaway, because that's what we're supposed to be at, right? Is that what you want me to go into?
Well, you're doing, I'm just following. You're doing great and everything. So, I mean, it's awesome to me that you and this group followed a dream and was able to achieve it again, no matter what the backlash of people, the negativities. So
yeah, it really is amazing.
I'm all for we should be taking a step forward to try to better mankind the best we can. So we may take one step and then it's forward and it's 10 steps backwards, but at least we're trying.
You have to try. You just have to put a foot forward. And these are millions of people around the world. And some of them, it's very interesting because there's a lot of people in socialist countries. There are people in our communist countries that still manage to get through, and they work hard at it and they talk to people about it. So there's millions on the ground that are now like, residents of this digital nation. And they all have this dream and this hope. And it's going to it's happened. So, and it's still happening, right? As we speak. And no one should think to themselves, well, it's too corrupt. It's too, you have to get your mindset out of it. The one thing I tell people I tell people a lot of things, but like one of the things that I do when I'm not listening is I'm talking now, but usually it's a lot of listening to figure out where someone's at and where they can reasonably and with common sense make changes in their life to get where they want. Because everybody is different on that. And people have different challenges that they're facing that they need to find solutions for. But one of the biggest, most universal blocks that every person I've worked with who has been unable to move forward is when I say, well, ask yourself, what would I do if I was not afraid? And when you ask yourself that question, when you have a challenge, so let's say the challenge is, how am I going to lose weight? So that's the challenge for me. And then I would say, well, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? And I think about, well, there's fears about money. What if it doesn't work? What if I do something that makes me more sick? I have a lot of fears. And most of them, if I follow that fear down, are completely unfounded, or the risk of that fear isn't worth the reward of if I were to do something positive. So I'm consistently working on that and asking myself that question. And I will say most entrepreneurs, anyone in business, the only way they're shooting themselves in the foot is all through fear. They're afraid to grow. They get money that comes in, but then they won't hire someone to meet the new demand. They literally will go, well, let's just cool it. Let's plateau for a little bit so we can get our bearings because we're so busy now, instead of hiring to meet that demand, anticipating that the other growth. They're so afraid they won't be able to pay them. They're so afraid of this and this and this. If they weren't afraid, they would hire them and then they would just grow and they'd level. It's like a video game. We're always trying to level up to the next stage, right? And so what they do is instead of leveling up to the next stage, they just stay here and they only go backward and they go, I've never done that well again. Well, it's because you've let fear stop you from doing that. Right. So when you see these companies that are aggressive, they don't let the fear come in. They look at numbers, which there's no emotion to numbers. And if the numbers say it's time, it's time. Or they put numbers in there that are ridiculous, that actually are so high up that even when they get there, they're like, they still don't believe because it's really not a real number. So they don't put good enough goals to actually do the leveling up. So, I
understand. Yeah. Wow. I think also a lot of people, especially just in life in general, that they get fear, like you said, fear of the unknown.
Yes.
I don't want to rock the boat or get out of the boat because I'm safe right here. And even though it could be better, I'm not sure. So I think that's a lot of things too.
Or they're already tired. They've worked so hard, and now they're working so hard. And then they think, oh, but then I'll have to train them. And then it'll just be more work. But really, for a business owner, the two things that are the least amount of money that they make is fulfilling the product, whatever it is, fulfillment, and their admin duties. The best part of being an owner, where you make the most money and you're actually going to be most profitable, is when they're in business development or sales or their marketing, right? They're working on moving their business forward. But you see people who create jobs for themselves. So they're an artist. So I'm going to do art, but then they have now so much art to do, and then they finish it, and then they've got to go right back to the drawing board.
Yep.
Instead of getting people to help any part of that system. So it's just fear. It's fear-based and not having systems or their numbers. That it all goes. There's a lot, but it really is a lot of fear. You're right.
It goes back to, you can't win the Kentucky Derby riding a mule. Okay? You got to get the right horse, the right trainer, the right investors, and everything in there. Can't win the World Series in baseball without the right people put in place. You're talking about people out of work that are not in the right place they should be working, the right positions. So same thing. I just like sports. So can't win the Super Bowl if you're letting your kicker be your quarterback. So
right. You're gonna need help with that.
Everybody's got their strength, weaknesses, and your job is to put them in that strength.
That's right. Or, up level your tools, up level your things, but use the numbers on it, and in sports, it's all about numbers. It's all about stats. It's all about getting that 0.0001% gain over what you did before. And it's the basics, I mean, it was like, I forget who it was. It Kobe Bryant or one of them that was talking about
what peace, Kobe.
Yeah. What was he doing? And they said, why do you still do the basic drills? And he would drill for hours and hours and hours on the most basic high school drills. And he said, because that's the basis of everything. If I start not performing, it's because I'm not doing the basics. I've gotten too fancy, or I've gotten to something else. And then, you have this incredible career. But all of them that are real true winners, they all do the same thing. Sales, when you do a sales, thing, and you're trying to, if you own a business, you're a salesperson. Okay. I hate to break it to you. If you're a doctor, or no matter what you do, the thing is, what does this person need? And can I provide it? And what is causing them? What fears are stopping them from wanting to come with me? How can I build that trust or get them over that bridge? Right.
Yeah.
And that's the most basic part, is being a professional consultant to them and seeing, well, no, I can do this, and then providing that value. But they lose track of it. They want to overwhelm people with data, overwhelm people with how awesome something is. And they don't even know why that person came in there in the first place, because they didn't ask any questions.
That's right.
And they take too long with them. Yeah. So, I mean, it should just be quick and easy, really, for the most part.
There we go. All right, Jennifer. Well, I appreciate you being here, and you threw out a bunch of golden nuggets, I think, for me to use, and I'll come back and re-listen to this. So go ahead and give people your social medias, again, your coaching, any programs you have, and go ahead and put that out.
I will. Well, if you want to find me, my name is Jennifer Gligoric. That's a hard one. It's Gligoric. And you can find me at superclinicproject.com. And if you click on my picture, it'll take you right to me, and you will be able to book a consult with me. So even if you're just interested and you just want to have a convo for 15 minutes, I will talk to anyone. And also there's a link there, and it can, give you more information. I have a free school on there, so you can go there and get a ton of resources from me. Free mastermind, you get a ton of stuff. So superclinicproject.com, and you can get all the good stuff. Just click on my picture.
There you go. And I believe it. I truly believe it. If someone just wants to say hello to you, talk, because you're like me, you're a talker. So
yeah,
I knew this was going to go pretty good today, because we both got blue Yetis.
Oh Yeah, we
Yeah, we
do.
both had matching Yetis.
That's
So
right.
same color and everything.
I
So,
know.
all right, Jennifer, again, appreciate you being here. There's people hurting and struggling. If you can give us a positive message to help them get through today, it'd be a blessing.
Just ask yourself, whenever you have a challenge, just ask yourself, what would I do if I were not afraid? And then think about that and let that possibility sit with you and start to do those things. Never let fear control or dictate any of your choices, unless there are good fears. It's a flood, somebody's pointed a gun at me, like something crazy. There's a good fear. But then when it comes to like life choices in business, what would I do if I were not afraid? Really sit on that, and you'll make better choices for yourself, and you'll get much better outcomes.
Amen. Yes, there's certain things that's known as good fears.
Yes,
Yes, there
absolutely.
is. Yeah, to help protect you in life, just like the other fear, but don't let it dominate you
Correct.
in your life. So, all right, then I'm glad to hear that your mother got over her sickness and you come to like her.
Oh, I
So
love her. I
there you
got the
go.
mother that I had always, hoped in my worst dreams. I prayed for God to change her heart or change this.
Yep.
And now I'm the luckiest girl in the world. I
There we
am.
go. Amen. I'm glad to hear that part. So,
Right.
all right, everybody else, hey, share this with someone who can use some information on trying to get your business kicking. Be sure to get a hold of Jennifer. She's got tons of information that she wants to share with you. Everybody else, I'm Dr. James Purdue, the professor of perseverance. Do something today, tomorrow, something next week that's going to help you persevere past your paralysis.